Good evening. Hello. Folks, good evening. Welcome to the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture. I'm Casey Matthews. I'm Deputy Director of the Schomburg Center. If you couldn't tell from our sizzle reel, we are celebrating our 100th birthday. So the centennial for us is not just a celebration of the Schomburg Center and what we've done and what we mean. And our ethos today is exactly the way it started with Arturo Alfonso Schomburg, even before we became the Division of Negro Literature, History, and Prince in 1925. It's about collecting, preserving, and sharing the richness of Black history and culture. And it's meaningful to mention that tonight because of the group that we're sharing the stage with. We're sharing the stage tonight with Save Harlem Now. And the title alone should give you an idea. Thank you. You know, we became a national landmark in 2017. Before that, we were a New York City landmark, and we're on the Registry of Historic Places. And quite often, when I'm telling the Schomburg Center story, I want people to understand even the history of the building. For those of you who actually just think the Schomburg Center is the big brick main building on Malcolm X Boulevard at 135th Street, turn the corner, go past the windows of Schomburg Shop and past the courtyard gate, and you see this beautiful white stone building. It is an Italian Renaissance design building. It is one of the original Carnegie libraries built in the city of New York. There were well over 1,700 of them. I believe there are close to 1,500 that still exist. It's a beautiful building. And that was our original home, and we still use that building. It looks like it sits apart from us. It doesn't. It's actually still part of the same complex. And the reason it's important is because there was a time when people were saying, well, Schomburg needs to expand. We need more room to hold this collection and to do the things that we do. And people were talking about getting rid of that white stone building. And it was the architect of the main building that you all walked through, a gentleman by the name of J. Max Bond, Jr., a Black architect, right? And it was his idea that it was okay that cities had a funky look because it was about the lives of the people in the community. So having a short building and a tall building and a green space in between and churches mixed in with residential buildings was exactly what he wanted. And he was an authority in urban renewal. For those of you who are graduates of City University, the Bond Center at City College is actually named for Max Bond, Jr. And we still believe that as well. So when we say that Schomburg is celebrating 100 years, it's the Harlem community that is really celebrating. And that's why you're here tonight, because we're going to have a discussion about Harlem and what it means to so many people. I often say that Schomburg Center is many things to many people. We're a research center and a library first and foremost. To some folks, we're a museum. To some folks, we're a warm space in the winter. We're a cool space in the summer. We are a cultural center. We are a place where people can go and learn about themselves and sit in the audience and hear about it, or go downstairs and research, go upstairs and research about it. We're many things to many people, and that's what Harlem is. So while the discussion tonight is about Harlem, I'd like for us also to celebrate the fact that there's an organization dedicated to preserving Harlem. So let me introduce you to the Executive Director of Save Harlem Now, Ms. Claudette Brady.
Good evening. Welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight for our second part of Author Talks, Two Voices, One Harlem. For those who don't know much about Save Harlem Now, we are dedicated to preserving Harlem's architectural and cultural heritage. Not just buildings, but stories, movements, people, and those places of meaning. We believe preservation is not only about what we protect physically, but also about what we remember, document, and pass forward. As preservationists, we're stewards, caretakers, not just of historic structures, but of stories, people, legacies. Stewardship is not a one-time act, not just the preservation or the designation of a historic district or a historic landmark building. It is ongoing work that requires constant vigilance, attention, commitment, especially in a time where some seek to erase Black history. The stories, places, and histories we value must be continually protected, uplifted, and defended. There is no greater steward of Black history than Arturo Schomburg, for whom this institution is named, a place that stands as a global beacon for the preservation of Black history. We are honored to be here tonight. Preservation is not just about archives and landmarks, it's also about stories. Storytelling is the oldest form of preservation. Long before books and libraries, stories were passed from one to another, telling the stories, the histories, and legacies of communities and families. Stories animate the past, give context to the places we fight to protect. Stories allow us to see ourselves and each other across time. This is why tonight's conversation is so special. We bring together two extraordinary voices, a historian whose work has fundamentally shaped our understanding of Black intellectual life, and a novelist whose storytelling brings history to life in a powerful and accessible way. Tonight, as we engage, listen, and reflect, I invite you to think about your own role as stewards of Harlem legacies, how each of us carries this story, from our children to our grandchildren, from our neighbors to our friends. I'd like to introduce now Sylvia White, who will serve as a facilitator for a question and answer part of the program. Sylvia wears many hats. She's an executive vice president at Bridge Philanthropic, a major fundraising organization in Harlem, and she's also a member of the Harlem Writers Guild. She has taught writing, and she's currently working on a biography of Vosa Rivers, who Save Harlem Now will be honoring at our gala on May 21st. We hope to see you there. Ladies and gentlemen, Sylvia White.
Thank you and good evening. The theme of tonight's conversation is Two Voices, One Harlem. And tonight we are in for a real treat. Our esteemed speakers are going to invite us to journey with them through space and through time and examine the rich history of people and places who have shaped who we are today. Tonight, Save Harlem Now, under the board of directors of Save Harlem Now and the incredible leadership of Ms. Valerie Jo Bradley, has invited us to this historic, yet somehow very contemporary conversation between two powerful voices in African American life and history. He is Professor Emeritus of History at New York University and the recipient of the Carter Woodson Centennial Scholar Medallion from the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. He has received the National Humanities Medal at the White House from President Barack Obama. That's okay, you can clap, it's all right, go on. It's all right. And he was inducted into the New Jersey Literary Hall of Fame. He is a two-time recipient of the Pulitzer Prize in Biography for his you can clap, it's all right. They're not gonna stop clapping, we love that. He is, and I just have to say this, he's the only author to win 2 Pulitzer Prizes for the same subject in the same category for different volumes. His books are considered the definitive standard biography of scholar activist W.E.B. Du Bois. He is Dr. David Levering Lewis. Please join me as we welcome Dr. Lewis with a round of applause. I just learned this today, so I have to share it. While his work serves as a powerful inspiration to us all, may I also mention that in 2 weeks, Dr. Lewis will be 90 years old. And the only reason I'm mentioning this is because I want you to know he is as busy as he has ever been. In fact, the reason we couldn't hold this event sooner was because Dr. Lewis was in Hollywood screening the movie about W.E.B. Du Bois. He's busy. He is busy. An inspiration to us all. She is a New York Times best-selling author of more than 30 books, including The Personal Librarian, which was a Good Morning America book club pick, and The First Ladies, which was Target's Book of the Year in 2023. She is an NAACP Image Award winner for outstanding literary work for her novel. It's okay to clap, go ahead. That was for her novel Stand Your Ground, which was also a Library Journal Best Book of the Year. It's okay to clap, it's okay, they earned it. The Washington Post has written, in tracing Fawcett's journey, Murray artfully recreates the excitement and exhilaration of Harlem at the blossoming of its literary and cultural heyday. Tahari Jones, a member of Oprah's book club, says that the book is a page-turner and a history lesson all at once. Harlem Rhapsody is the book we're going to talk about tonight. And it reminds us that our stories are our generational wealth. This book and the lives that inspired it. She is the powerful storyteller, Victoria Christopher Murray. Please join me as we welcome her. And so we will begin our conversation, and I will come back later for the Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bivens, Ms. White, and thank you, Mr. Matthews, because indeed this Schomburg event is obliged to you for having so clearly and cleverly framed this evening's conversation between a professional historian and a gifted novelist as two voices, one Harlem. I take it that Two Voices is another way of describing Burkhart Du Bois and Jessie Fawcett as Renaissance figures presented by two biographers, one who is inescapably bound by chronology, and the other who's wonderfully liberated by imagination. That Jessie Fawcett arrives from Washington to become literary editor of The Crisis with her moralistic Jewish stepmother, not her sister, Helen Lanning Fawcett, and that Fawcett's 1925 Crisis resignation is both the wrong year and for the wrong reason, are decisions Miss Murray chooses for the sake of narrative impact. That the poet Claude McKay is actually in Russia and not the Civic Club to tell Jessie Fawcett that she's being shared with the poet Georgia Douglas Johnson from Washington, D.C. by her beloved editor is another such invention. As a Du Bois biographer, I can well imagine the University of Berlin trained Du Bois's scholarly impatience with Harlem Rhapsody. History, he would protest with Rankian fervor, history is what actually happens. Geschichte ist wie es eigentlich gewesen. Happily, though, scholarly punctiliousness is not the business of this evening, because Victoria Christopher Murray's wonderfully revelatory and solidly researched Harlem Rhapsody is an astonishing gift to the field of Harlem Renaissance literature. One salutes the very similitude she brings page by page to the rediscovery of the fabulous black people who created, with strategic help from a handful of cagey Caucasians, a cultural geyser above Central Park all the way to high-rolling realtor Philip Payton's capture of the private dwelling market in the vicinity of 133rd and 134th Streets, and from there to Strivers Row and Hamilton Heights. Like the omniscient griot of Harlem she is, Lana Turner objected to our author's opening page where Jessie Fawcett hears Mamie Smith's contralto as she opens the Harlem house Du Bois located for her to run the crisis, an old song Mamie had sung in 1918. By the same token, our author closes Harlem Rhapsody with voices long gone. Today, Murray tells us, Harlem's melody is infused with words. Love, leave me like the light, County Cullen. Well, son, I'll tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal stair, Langston. Poor, oh poor, that parting soul in song. Toomer, this cool night is strange among midsummer days, Nella Larson. Let's imagine, though, that the new literary editor of the crisis could hear Mamie's contralto. Let's follow Jessie, our first female, actually the second Cornell Phi Beta Kappa, who by the time she leaves the lover she famously captured in French, la vie, c'est la vie, the man whose lightest word can set my chilly blood afire, but he will none of me, nor I of you, nor you of her, 'tis said, the world is full of jests like these, I wish I were dead. But as she quits the crisis and ends those passionate sexual twists in the old Olga Hotel, Miss Murray quotes my crisis, quotes me and my verdict on them as two star-crossed lovers who had a parallel marriage. Yes, as long as their love lasted, but as your novel shows us, Du Bois could be an egomaniacal misogynist even when Fawcett's selfless devotion saved his second Pan-African Congress in Brussels, where her eloquent speech about women's educational advancement elicited praise from NAACP President Joel Spingarn and honorary membership in your powerful black sorority, Delta Sigma Theta. So as you exalt her editorial prowess, Jessie Fawcett with August Granville Dill reels young Langston, Georgia Douglas Johnson, and Nella Larson into her children's brownies book, and when that therapeutic children's marvel dies, it will be she who recruits virtually all the Renaissance stars, Toomer, the optional Negro, the bisexual Wallace Thurman and gay Richard Bruce Nugent, Zora Neale Hurston, the unpredictable, Anna Bonton from California with the bed at 580 St. Nicholas, Aaron Douglas from Kansas City with Wendell Rice as arts teacher, County Cullen, Du Bois's favorite genius, Yolande's future husband, and Harold Jackman's soulmate. The whole brilliant lot just ready for Opportunity magazine editor Charles Spurgeon Johnson to show them off to all the Civic Club Caucasian literati at that famous March 21st dinner in 1924. As I close my positive remarks about Harlem Rhapsody, I see why you decided to have Jessie Fawcett exit her literary editorship in 1925 rather than in the following year. She, who had done so much for her man, finally decided she could do no more. Their ongoing disputes about the best literature for the race did become sharper, as did Du Bois's resentment of Charles Johnson's Opportunity Prize encroachment at the Fifth Avenue restaurant that year. Harlem's great photographer James Van Der Zee has left us a splendid group photograph of that evening with Jessie Fawcett center stage. But it was not even Langston Hughes's outrageous June 1926 Nation essay, The Negro Artist and the Racial Mountain, nor Carl Van Vechten's Nigger Heaven novel that year, nor even Wallace Thurman's sexually transgressive matter in Fire magazine. Donning my historian's biographer's cap, I must share another reason for Fawcett's crisis denouement. Jessie and Sister Helen had loaned $2,500 to help carry the notes and the mounting repairs of Du Bois's ever more costly ventures into Harlem real estate. Repeated requests went unresponded, a situation that now left Jessie facing a costly, perilous surgical prognosis of gastroenterostomy. At wit's ends, the two sisters appealed to NAACP President Joel Spingarn to anticipate Du Bois's 60th birthday with a financial bonus. Learning quickly of this insult to his male capabilities, Du Bois demanded a loan from the NAACP board, from which he promptly repaid the sisters. Jessie's final departure ensued, but with the ecstatic news from the Spingarns recommended medical experts that no surgical operation was needed. Thank you, Victoria Christopher Murray, for this fine, significant contribution to the growing bibliography of the new.
Oh my God. Wow. So what am I supposed to say after that? First of all, it is such an honor for me to be sitting on the stage with you because I wouldn't have even been able to write one page of this book without all the books that you gave me for research. So you are the historian, and I'm just the person that takes the history and puts a lot of fiction in there. I didn't expect you to tell people my secrets, though. Like, yes, I ended the book much nicer than their breakup, but one of the things that I have to think about as a fiction writer is while I want to give the history, I have to give the readers a satisfying read so they won't come after me.
Right.
And so people were already very upset about the affair with Jessie and W.E.B. Du Bois. They were more upset with him than her. Mm-hmm. And so if I told them the truth about what he did at the end, they would have thrown the book across the room. So, but one of the greatest compliments you gave me just now is when you said the book was very well researched.
It is.
And one of the things that I always want to do when writing historical fiction is while I am a fiction writer, so I want you all to know that, I didn't know that Dr. Lewis was going to give away all the secrets, the parts that I had made up, but, and I'm glad you did. But I want my books to be historically sound so that readers are learning about this history that has been hidden a bit from us.
Yes.
At this time, I feel I've been writing for many years. I've been writing for almost 30 years, novels. And I always felt the books that I was writing before I wrote historical fiction. I've only been writing historical fiction for like the last 5 or 6 years. And I always felt that those books were my purpose. But now that I write historical fiction, I know that those books were my preparation for my purpose. Because this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be standing on the shoulders of historians like you and taking your words and your history and putting them into books that are accessible to fiction readers.
Yes.
Because a fiction reader, and I'm one of them, I'm not going to read a textbook on W.E.B. Du Bois. I'm not. I'm, being honest.
I've been noticing that many people are not reading my books.
No, and I think there's a place for them. And so because I think I read your books, and there's a place for them, and because of your books, I can write my books. And it's so important for both of us now because as I said, I stand on your shoulders and I write these books, and we're writing these books at a time when they are trying to bury our history.
Right, yeah.
And so what I'm doing and what I plan to do until the fingers fall off is I am going to excavate our history. As they try to hide us, I'm going to bring us into light.
Right.
As they try to ban us, I'm going to figure out a way to write more books.
Right.
And so I love the theme of this, that there's 2 writers but 1 voice, because I think we're doing the same thing coming from different angles.
Yes. I think that at this moment, as you're saying, something is happening in this country, and to people of color especially, that is unique. In the past, we have confronted unfairness and really severe injustices. But there's always been an element of guilt
Yes.
in these phenomena. And from the feeling of guilt and from the fact of that guilt, we can shame and we can legislate, and finally we can have a sense that we have begun to change the better for this country, which we have indeed rendered that service from our very beginning, from 1619 to the present. But today,
No shame.
we have an unshamed administration whose agenda, following the Project 25, line by line, is to neuter us politically and to remove us as much as we can as a political and a cultural presence. It is so clear now that with this strange man at
1600.
or Mar-a-Lago, I should say, with his new statuary in the Rose Garden, I gather, of new idols to represent the right kind of American history, with Stephen Miller as an acolyte who is to make sure that the New York Historical Society or the National Museum of African American History or any institution that honors the contributions that we have made, not only solely, but collectively, can prevail, is adamant that at the end of the day, we will disappear. We are not quite the Jews of 1933 in Germany, but the situation mimics it in many ways. Mm-hmm. And we have to be on our guard, and we have to listen to you, and I hope we'll listen to myself, but we have to listen to someone whose research is so adequate and so responsible and has so much integrity that even when you invent things that didn't quite happen, they should have. The the
The
applause.
stuff I made up should have happened, right?
It should have.
It should have.
Okay. Right. Du Bois would still say, das ist nicht Geschichte.
He would still say that.
It would still say.
You know, one of the things I love about what you're saying, Dr. Lewis, is that during this time, I think all of us need to be using our gifts, whatever they are, to resist.
Yes.
And writing is my resistance.
Yeah.
Writing these stories is my resistance. It's my way of fighting back. It's my way of saying, you're going to try to bury me, but you can't, because I'm going to write these stories. And while writing is my resistance, I believe that reading becomes yours, because they can never take something out of your mind once you've read it. They can't take that away from you. So we all need to use whatever gifts we've been given to fight back, because marching is fine and protesting is fine, and I will always be part of that too, but we have other gifts that need to be used now. And that's why I'm so grateful for you and for historians like you, because without you, my books could never be written. So thank you.
Thank you for having taken what I've written and made it accessible.
Yeah, and I think that's the word, you know, just accessible, because there are going to be some people that will only read your books. The gentleman came tonight and he had 2 big 1,000-page volumes. And then there are some people who only read my kind of books. And so we are covering the world
We are.
with what we're doing.
I don't know whether we want to invite responses from our audience, or shall we talk a little bit more about the two people, Jesse and Du Bois?
Yes. Yes, let's talk about the two people, because you know, when I was writing this book, and I don't know, for those of you who haven't read it, Harlem Rhapsody is about Jessie Redmond Fawcett, the woman who arguably, there wouldn't be a literary side of the Harlem Rhapsody without, a Harlem Renaissance without her. She discovered most of the Harlem Renaissance writers that you know. And she discovered them when they were kids. You know, that's what I like to say. They were children, and she encouraged and nurtured them to become writers. And she did this when she was the literary editor of the Crisis magazine, which was the preeminent magazine for Black people at the time, though it wasn't just Black people. And that was the only place primarily where Black people could be published. And so she discovered these writers and gave them their chance. But as this was the most important thing she was doing in her life, because the entire African-American literary canon sits on her shoulders, she wrote the very first novel of the Black middle class. But while she was doing this, she was in a situationship with W.E.B. Du Bois. And the reason I call it a situationship, it was that it was no ordinary affair.
No.
It was no ordinary affair at all. And I did take your words, where you said they were star-crossed lovers, and I felt that was very specific. The only time I ever heard those words used were with Romeo and Juliet. So it was a love affair that was not going to end well, and that they had a parallel marriage. That part I could never figure out. But while people love the book, and I know historians get mad when historical fiction writers move dates and move things, but that's what we have to do for fiction. There were a few people that were annoyed with me with the affair.
Now, why?
So I had one person, I was invited up to Great Barrington for, I think it was his 150th birthday, I can't remember, last year.
Okay, yes, it was.
And a historian, a young woman said that he had never had any affairs with anybody because he was a truth teller. And she said, I guess in his last book when he was in his 90s or something, and he said he had never had any affairs. I said he forgot. Like he was 90. He had forgotten them all. And the reason I had letters,
Well,
you know?
No, he didn't forget, you know. And, you know, Mrs. Du Bois, the unloved Mrs. Du Bois, she had been his student at Wilberforce.
Yes, at Wilberforce.
She came from a middle-class family
Yes.
in Iowa, I think. And it may well be that because their first child, Burkhart, died of diphtheria, for which at that point there was no cure, that she never recovered. He said perhaps that was a factor, even though she produced a daughter who was an interesting person to be sure. But Mrs. Du Bois was very straight-laced, I think, in many ways. And Du Bois had discovered sex as a student at Fisk
Yes.
when his landlady
His landlady.
had raped him. And not many men have that experience, but it was for him a curious event. And I think sex then became for him something to use splendidly and well with the right people. And so he did. So, for example, when Mrs. Du Bois died in 1950, I believe, July, there was a person who had loved him all her life. Her name was...
It begins with an S, right?
yes, it is...
I can't think of her name right now.
it is the second Mrs. Du Bois. Shirley Graham Du Bois. And when she said to him, after Nina passed, and when he was then simultaneously indicted as a foreign agent of the Soviet Union to be tried in Washington, D.C., she said, "This changes everything, William. We're going to get married now so that I can now testify against you, and then we're going to go off on the country crusading for money for defense of you." And Du Bois complied, yes. But he had something to do. He had to write 5 women who had been waiting for Mrs. Du Bois to die most of their lives. And so he wrote to each quite courteously, "My dear, you must understand," and with great regret, "that I have been chosen by Mrs. Graham to be her husband, and I valued our time together." And those 5 women, I think, clutched those letters to their breasts to this day.
Yeah.
And so he didn't forget.
He didn't forget. He knew. So that young lady, she really just didn't believe he ever, and I don't understand how she could believe that. Then other people did not want me airing dirty laundry. And I don't feel as if I did air any dirty laundry. It wasn't dirty. They were normal people doing normal people things. They were just kind of peopling. And I think one of the things that we do with our heroes is we put them on pedestals and forget about the fact that they were born the same way we were born. They're just ordinary people doing ordinary things, but they had extraordinary accomplishments. And I think that's how we need to look at people, as that they were ordinary who had done extraordinary things. And that their ordinariness doesn't take away their extraordinary accomplishments.
Yes.
And so that's how we need to start looking at these people.
Yes, absolutely. You know, I do have a question about the Hotel Olga.
Yes.
It no longer exists.
I walked up there, and it no longer exists. It's just an empty parking lot.
That's right.
An empty lot.
However, not so many years ago, it was there, and it was the place that the hoi polloi, the distinguished members of the Renaissance frequented. However, I asked many people about Du Bois and the rumors about him. And many people would say, well, you know, we simply accepted that. He was Du Bois. But yet and still, to go to the Hotel Olga with Jessie Fawcett and have lunch, have dinner, and then say, well, we're going to take a room,
Yeah.
wouldn't that have been somewhat scandalous? Wouldn't it have?
Yeah, and I don't think they like said, okay, let's go to a room together. You know, I think they were, if the way I imagined it.
No.
I'm not sure they actually were at the Hotel Olga. As I was looking and trying to research and find places, there was something I read, and I didn't trust it,
Okay.
but that he had another apartment
Uh-huh.
downtown, closer to the NAACP offices.
75th Avenue.
Yeah, closer down there. And so because I could only find one thing on that, and
But
I
you
didn't
put
ever
them
see-
together in the
yes,
Hotel Olga.
yes, because I said if I'm gonna make up the part, I'm gonna just make it up. And so I said, okay, so let me tell people about the Hotel Olga.
Okay.
And
It was famous.
it was a famous hotel. It had just opened up then.
That's right. That's right.
And so I have a lot of people who've read the book who go up there looking for the Hotel Olga because that's the place I decided to put them screwing.
Okay.
I didn't want to think about him in having a separate apartment. I don't know why. It doesn't matter. If you're having an affair, you're having an affair. But I didn't like, there were enough things that were going to make the readers mad at him. And, having
Well,
an
so let's
apartment.
move to some of those.
Yeah.
To his misogyny, to
Yes.
his egomania,
Yes.
to the fact that when the closer you got to this fellow, as I did, the closer you realized that all the things that were said were true about him, that he was the savior of the race, he
Yes.
was the smartest person in all sorts of ways, and the first in every way, Harvard's PhD, University of Berlin, and all of that sort of thing. Yet he was human in the way that it was his responsibility to save the race.
Yeah.
And don't try to take that away from him.
Yeah. And you can't help me. I don't need your help. I'm
And you
doing
don't, that's right. But he did need Jessie Fawcett's help. And she, in fact, really invented the crisis as a Harlem Renaissance phenomenon. And so they leave. The relationship ends in 1926. Finally, she marries an insurance broker, Herbert Hill or somebody like that. What kind of obligation shouldn't he have had for her? She hoped, since she couldn't run the crisis, she hoped that she could at least find a job in publishing.
Yeah.
Not perhaps at the top, but as a copy editor even. And of course, the Spingarns, who were so important to the NAACP, but who had founded Harcourt Brace and World, they should have
Given her a position.
given her a position, and he should have made that happen. And I regret that, because you have it end in one way, in that Nina comes to
Goes to Jessie.
to Jessie and says, I knew about this affair, but I wanted you to know that one, he would always come back to me, but two, that you were special. Okay, well, that was a good resolution. But Du Bois goes on for other things. He writes Black Reconstruction in America from Atlanta, but Jessie is there with Herbert in Montclair, and she has to teach at DeWitt Clinton, where James Baldwin went. Yes, that's true. But,
She never lived her dream after that.
She never
lived.
That's right.
So about her, it's interesting because I was just in New York a couple of weeks ago with the chapter of Delta Sigma Theta that Jessie belonged to.
Right, yes.
So some of them are here, so that is so exciting. So she belonged to their chapter. And I was telling my sorors then that W.E.B. Du Bois was like the greatest misogynist. The closer I got to him, the more I was like, are you kidding me? But I could give him some grace. And the reason I could is that this was only 50 years after Reconstruction. Just 50 years. And I always tell people, when I was 14 and I learned that it was 50 years after Reconstruction, it sounded like 500 years. But from where I sit now, it sounds like last Thursday. And so it was such a short time. And he was being a man of his time. He had never seen women do anything or accomplish anything or, you know, one of the things I found fascinating about him, and I want to know if this is true, he was never in the forefront of women's issues, but he supported women's issues.
Well, the damnation of women is an extraordinary document. His alliance with Margaret Sanger certainly is important. When the run-of-mill of African American males of that time, they were a pretty egocentric bunch, I think. For example, when we come to the March on Washington, we don't have any women speaking.
We don't have any women speaking.
Until Josephine Baker, wearing her resistance uniform, says, I'm going to speak. And she was allowed to speak. But no, those guys.
No women speaking, even though so many women helped plan.
That's right.
So
exactly.
That's another book I had wanted to write, actually, about the women of the march. But it was so I think that's been a thing in the Black community. But Du Bois was such a short time after emancipation that I could almost give him understanding of what he saw. If he were that man today, I'd have a problem with it.
You would indeed, yeah.
But so few Black people were even graduating from high school at that time, you know, and he was the most educated man on this, and so I know you had to have a certain amount of ego that went with that for him to even accomplish what he accomplished.
Indeed. But you know, the women felt such gratitude. That is to say, one woman after another said, but he appreciated me because of my accomplishments.
Yeah.
And he had that knack for eliciting and evoking with them the purposefulness of their lives. And not many men could do that probably in his day.
When people read Harlem Renaissance, I've had so many women say, I had to go Google that man's picture, because they were wondering what was it about him. But what I tried to tell people that W.E.B. Du Bois in 1920, he was not Willie from the block. He was a one and only man, that educated man. He had a certain kind of charm. He had an ego that worked for him and didn't work for him. And so it wasn't like somebody could tear themselves away from him, especially since he knew how to make women feel good in lots of different ways. Yes,
I think that's true. I say somewhere in volume 2, as a matter of fact, since I was rather curious about getting my story straight, and so I've been asked women, well, you know, what about this fellow? And one said, and she was the ambassador to Syria, so Lyndon Johnson sent her there, so she was a big deal. And we're sitting together in the Watergate in Washington, and I said, what was it about him? And she said, all the things that you would say. She said, but you know, he was so well hung.
That's what I know, I read that. I read that part. I read that part, and I couldn't unsee those words.
Right.
And apparently the women would talk to each other about how he was well hung, and that was the words they used, and I was like, I can't unsee that.
Well, I think we should now, at this point,
This is where we bring y'all in. That's true. That's true. I read it. I read it. Yes, yes.
Okay. That was a direction that was certainly unexpected. But here we are.
But that's what
And
the
so,
women, that's what the women were saying about him, and they would talk to each other about that.
well, that's certainly something to discuss. Okay, so there are two microphones in the back. Can you see them? If you have a question, please make your way, please navigate to the microphones. One is there and one is there. Please navigate to the microphones and we will alternate between the two. To begin the conversation, I have a couple of questions. Beyond the obvious, and this is for you, Ms. Christopher Murray, beyond the obvious honor of being able to speak with such an esteemed scholar and academician and historian, when we mentioned this event to you, you got so
I know.
excited.
I
Can
know.
you tell us why you were so excited to meet Dr. David Levering?
Oh my goodness. And thank you for putting this together because I want, and I think you could both
Save
knew
Harlem
that.
Now, yes, Save Harlem
I
Now
think
is
you
this, yes,
you
yes.
both knew. Because there would not be a novel without Dr. Lewis. There wouldn't be that novel. I read, it wasn't just the biographies, it was When Harlem Was in Vogue, which is a book I recommend everybody read. Isn't it a great book? And you told the story so well to me. I felt like you were my teacher, you were my mentor. I had never met you, but I was like, I could hear Dr. Lewis saying, now make sure you write, oh, you're gonna make that part up, Victoria? Okay. But I felt like it's so well researched because you gave me the research to find. And so when I first, before I started writing Harlem Rhapsody, I had already read a lot of Dr. Lewis's books. And I said to my agent and editor, I had lunch with them, and I said, I would do anything to meet Dr. Lewis. And this is not my first historical fiction, but this is my first historical fiction where I fell in love with the historian.
Yes.
And so they said, well, what do you think you can do? And I looked up New York University, and I couldn't find it. I sent an email. I knew he wasn't going to get it. And so then when I was contacted, it was like, this is a literary career dream come true for me.
And for me, and for me.
And then I heard that he read the book and liked it. There's nothing greater than that.
What's better than that? Thank you so much. And so I see we have two questions. I'm going to start. Hi, how are you?
Hi, thank you for this wonderful discussion. A friend of mine and I came up, we're from Philadelphia. So the connection of Philadelphia to the
Yes.
Harlem Renaissance has really, a lot of people are starting to explore it. And the Barnes Foundation just did a 4-week workshop on Philadelphia and the Harlem Renaissance, and they featured
Oh my goodness.
Jesse
I'm
Redmond
fabulous.
and Bosset. And I was like, I just read Harlem Rhapsody, so I know about her. But I really enjoyed the book. I listened to the book, and I fell in love with Jesse. And I found myself saying, no, Jesse, please don't say no. But I wanted to know if that was really her personality, because I know it was a work of fiction. I was
Yeah.
like, was she, all the pictures you see of her, she looks like she's a pretty delightful person. But how would you, did you craft her based on what you thought her personality was like, or from, you know, maybe some people talking about what her personality was like?
That's a good question because I always have to, after I do the research, I have to extrapolate the fiction. Do you know what I mean? So even my fiction is based on research. So I built her personality on the fact that she had this long-term affair. Like that part I knew to be. that she was a nurturer to these young writers. So you have to have a certain kind of personality to be a nurturer. Like Du Bois couldn't have done it. Like if he wouldn't have had any patience for County or for Langston's problems at Columbia. So all of those kinds of things helped me to build her personality. And I don't know what you're talking about specifically. Are you talking about why she stayed with him?
No, just how you crafted her whole, like it was a sense that she was kind of a buoyant kind of person, and I was like,
I think she had to be because she attracted them too. Like that woman could smell talent. Like how could you go out and find all these people? And so I just think that there had to be something about her personality. Also, somebody pointed out something to me. A person who's been following my career for about 20 years said that he felt no one else could have written this book about Jessie except for me, that's the greatest compliment. That's a compliment. And he said, because every writer puts a little bit of themselves into every book, and I was like, oh no, I don't. I don't do that. There's a lot of me in Jessie.
well, thank you for sharing parts of yourself.
Okay, we're going to go to this mic.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for all that you both do, writing page turners. Everything I've read by you, I wind up staying up too late at night. When I first read volume 1 of Du Bois, Dr. Lewis, I went up to Great Barrington. I was very disappointed that they didn't even acknowledge him. I know they've since put together his farmhouse, and I've since found out that they're starting to champion James Weldon Johnson, John Rosamond Johnson, who summered nearby,
And
along
of course,
with John Nail.
the new statue on the steps of the public library.
Excellent, excellent. But my question is specifically this. Someone tried to convince me that W.E.B. Du Bois was very, very formal. Is that the case? And can you elaborate upon that?
Yes, I think he projected a kind of formality that was protective. He had a kind of shyness, really, and so that was a cover, I think. But that is true. You describe Claude McKay reading The Souls of Black Folk and then meeting Du Bois, and he was quite disappointed. He said, this is a work of fire, but there's no soul there in that man. John Hope Franklin, a Harvard man, wanted to meet Du Bois and did. And he said, sir, I'm getting my PhD from Harvard, like you, and I'm deep into research about the race and the problems and so on. And Du Bois looked up and he said, oh, fine. Couldn't get anything from him at all. So, yes, it was both shyness and a bit of arrogance, I think, that projected a formality that was not bone deep, as we see now. And there were situations where when he was in France, for example, he did come alive. He couldn't speak French at all, really, not at all. German, okay. But the French were good for him. And he found the race problem is differently instituted in France, of course. And of course, his treatment of his family was most regrettable because there was a lack of understanding of a young girl's problems, his daughter. And he, again and again, well, I guess you would begin with Yolande trying to signal something about her relationship with County Cullen. And of course, the man's a genius, there'll be good genetics, and off we go. And of course, off they did go, Harold Jackman and County. And only later did that become quite problematic for the family. You know?
Yeah, there's actually a novel coming out next month in May called A Harlem Wedding,
Oh,
by Tiffany L. Warren, and she and I did the research here at the Schomburg together for our two separate books, but and it's about the wedding of Yolande County, and she used your books a lot too. I know she wanted to be here. So the thing that was so fascinating about that is that I learned a lot about Du Bois with that, where he was like, I don't care what you say about County, marry him.
yes,
And she was like, okay, now that I'm married, what are we going to do about this?
right.
Because it didn't work out. I do want to say something about him being so formal, too. Sometimes I wondered if he behaved the way he felt he was expected to behave. As the first Black man to graduate from Harvard with a PhD. I think there was, even though there was a lot of arrogance in him, I think there was a lot of pressure on him to perform, and expectations, real and unreal, but I think some of that may have been performative, that he felt like he had to behave in such a way.
I'm in awe of both of you for so many reasons. Dr. Lewis, your book on the Harlem Renaissance, I think, is still the Bible, the most comprehensive, wonderful book on the Harlem Renaissance. But I'm in awe of W.E.B. Du Bois for the range of his life from the 1890s up to 1967, if I remember correctly, which is when many of us were still alive. And the only other person that seemed to span that realm was U.B. Blake, who wrote his Charleston Rag in 1898 or 99, and lived up till the time that many of us are still, are alive.
You're talking about the David Greaves film, are you? And all the survivors of the Harlem Renaissance gathered at Duke Ellington's townhouse and are filmed all day with an open bar, all the survivors talking and reliving their lives and what have you. No, I guess not. Well, that is on its way to, it went to Sundance, and now it's on its way to Cannes as a feature.
Oh, wow.
So that's very good to have these people still arguing, and U.B. Blake's in it too.
Wow.
As a cinema.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Thank you so much. We have a question on this side. Hi.
Hello, good evening. You two have sharp minds, and I have a quick question right here.
Yeah.
Doc. How do you stay diligent in keeping the mind sharp over these years? For both of you two.
So what made you think that? What? No, I'm just very curious. What made you think that I've been alive that long? I'm just curious. Do I look? I just want to.
No disrespect, but I'm born in 1997, so I could tell who is.
So
I know you're not born in 1997, though, right?
That's true. I'm not.
So,
So I'm just curious because nobody's ever asked me that question before. But I did just turn 70, so it's a good question. It's a good question for you to ask. I just keep doing what I love, and sometimes people ask me, what do I do for relaxation? And what I do for relaxation is write.
Yeah.
Like these stories are in me, and I write so I could breathe, because sometimes the words are like choking me and I have to get them out. So it's just what I love. I love to read, I love to write, and I just hope I never lose that.
Good. Yeah.
I still want to know, what made you think?
Since my age has been revealed, I think the success of keeping one's attention span vital is to keep reading and writing and so on. However, I do find now that I cannot really remember things, and so I think that must be the beginning of a condition that will only augment, but I still think that I'm articulate and I know a lot, and I'm willing to be useful to people who want to benefit.
I think we have a question on this side. Hi.
Hi. Thank you both. I'm really appreciative of the time that you've taken to do this and the amount of research and work that you've done.
Can't hear you.
Hello. Sorry. Thank you both for the amount of research that you've done and for bringing this talk to Harlem. Ms. Murray, I want to thank you also. I hope that you know you've been awarded Best Author for the Go On Girl Book Club, and we expect to see you in June. So I look forward to seeing you there. Me and my daughter read your book.
I
and
just won Author of the Year for Harlem Rhapsody.
Yes. Dr. Lewis, though, I do have a question. What got you started looking at W.E.B. Du Bois?
That's a good question.
Well, you know, he's been part of my life, really. My father knew him well, and I met him at a critical moment in our lives. When I say our lives, I mean racially. When I was 13, my father said, "Oh, there's William Du Bois. Come over here, son, and meet him." And I did, and he said, "Oh, are you one of these smart young people who performed earlier in the day?" And I said, "Oh, yes, sir. Would you like to hear what I said?" And so I began to tell him, and he said, "Well, thank you very much. I think I've heard enough." But the point about it was that where were we? We were at Wilberforce, Ohio, where the most distinguished organization of black people then, the Boulé, had convened. And Du Bois was to address the talented 10th. That's what we were. And he went in, and he told them that they had disappointed him because the talented 10th was for those to whom much is given, much is expected. And we had become an elitist organization that had not served the people well, and that he was disgusted with us, and that we now had to redefine ourselves, and also that we needed to read Karl Marx, and we needed, he said, to change our organization. And nobody clapped. And so as we all got up and left, he was seated on a bench, and we all just walked past him, and we didn't know what to say. My mother said, "Oh, he's just his old mischievous self. He always has been." My father's reaction was, "I'm afraid, really, that was a mistake." He went off to run for an office as in the Senate. He campaigned with Henry Wallace. He said that the African Americans were going to vote for the Progressive Party. Of course, that did not happen. And so this was a moment that was defining, and I always remembered that. And so I thought later on, if there's a chance to write about this man, I'll take it. No, I did.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. Hi. Hi.
Thank you very much. I have found this whole talk to be very informative. And I would just like to say before I move on with, I guess, a statement and a question, that I just read on Facebook today, Dr. Lewis, that you have endowed $1 million to CCNY for the study of, for biography. Am I getting that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God.
This is the kind of man
my
we have
God.
sitting here with us who has furthered the study and the memory of Harlem. And I would just like to thank you for that gesture, that $1 million gesture. Congratulations to you. That's so wonderful.
That is
Because that means that some lucky student, I assume, here in Harlem, studying at CCNY, is going to be able to benefit from your largesse?
It is, in fact, a $2 million
Oh, excuse me, yes.
because I didn't have the extra million. It was a challenge grant from Sylvia White, who is the benefactor of the Leon Levy Foundation in biography. And when she had said that anyone who wanted to contribute, it would be matched, I did with my million. And so it's a $2 million fellowship in biography at the Leon Levy, and it is in the African diaspora. So that is the world that I hope will generate a lot of fellows.
Thank you so much. Now, I found it very interesting that you called to our attention how Du Bois also was not that great at forging relationships with his family. I happen to have been a very close friend of Shirley Graham Du Bois's grandson.
David.
And when he graduated from high school, he was 2 years ahead of me. They brought him to Ghana to study at the University of Legon.
Yes.
And he hated it.
Ah.
He hated every minute of it, and he hated it primarily because of a lack of a relationship with, quote, his grandfather, who did not relate to him, did not help him try to make the adjustments from Indianapolis, Indiana to Ghana, and going to the University of Legon. And I was sitting reading his letters, just eating my heart out, saying, oh my God, his W.E.B. Du Bois, and he's in Ghana, he's there with Nkrumah, and he hates it, but like he laid it out to me why he hated it. So I just found it interesting that you talked about his lack of identifying with people in his family and forging relationships.
Yes. When Du Bois Williams, his granddaughter, went to Czechoslovakia for one of those, what were they, progressive operations, she fell in love with a Czechoslovakian cinematographer, and she wrote back home to her grandfather and said, this is the man for me, I'm really godsmocked. And he said, And so he wrote Khrushchev and said, would you investigate this man? Because, she's there by herself and there's this guy. And eventually, that young man declined to continue the relationship.
Wow.
So I don't know that Khrushchev actually stopped it, but it was that kind of protectiveness that he was responsible for. But then he did a lot of great things too. So, but that one was.
I got the feeling that he wasn't invested in my friend because he wasn't his blood grandson. He was Shirley's grandson.
Oh, that's true. It was adopted. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I think we have a question on this side. Hi.
Yes, how are you? To David Levering Lewis, I just wanted to say that if I had known a couple of years ago that all I had to do was cross the street to see you, that would have been great. However, at the W.E.B. Du Bois Pan-African Conference, which was held in Ghana, is where I met David Levering Lewis the first time. And I've come to be very moved by his writings. Not only was he a Pulitzer Prize for one of his books, but he was also, I think, the only person who's gotten the Pulitzer Prize for 2 books which were on the same subject. I also want to say thank you for meeting you in Ghana. That was wonderful. And I'm glad that I could come across the street and see you this evening. I also wanted to say that Jeffrey Dupree, who is W.E.B. Du Bois's great-grandson, was also in Ghana, and he does look up to his great-grandfather and is trying to follow moving the movement and the struggle with everybody. So I just wanted to say thank you, sir, and I hope to be able to meet you again and again and again. Thank you so much.
I just saw Jeffrey Peck in Hollywood, as a matter of fact.
Really?
Because the Rebel with the Cause is a 1 hour and 55-minute film about Du Bois's life that played in Hollywood, had its world premiere, and will, I think, be something that we'll want to see more and more of. It will be on American Masters on May 18th, and it deserves all the attention we can give it, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Okay, we're going to conclude our Q&A section. I'm going to invite Ms. Claudette Brady back to the podium to continue our program. Thank you.
Once again, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I have to say a special thank you to Sylvia White, because it was through Sylvia White that I met Victoria. Victoria had invited me to a book talk that you did, and somehow David Leverin Lewis came about, and she's like, I love him. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna try and hook you up. So this is the result, and it has been like an amazing evening. Thank you so much, David and Victoria. I'd like to invite to the stage now Valerie Bradley, one of the founders and president of Save Harlem Now, and Lynn Kilgore-Henley, Save Harlem Now board member. Oh, one last bit of housekeeping. At the end of the program, you'll be able to do, if you have books with you, we'll be book signing outside, and we can do, and photos if you want to take photos. So at the end of the program, in the Langston Hughes lobby.
Dr. Lewis, could you come and join us, please?
Yes.
I know this is not a Pulitzer,
Well,
but it's Save Harlem Now's way of saying how much we appreciate your scholarship and your work for keeping Harlem's name alive and helping us to understand that when we celebrate Harlem, we're celebrating American history. And so we give you this in appreciation for keeping Harlem's history alive. Your landmark work proves that Harlem's history is American history. David Leverin Lewis.
oh,
Thank you.
thank you so much. Yes, indeed. Well, thank you. You know, the Pulitzer is in plastic, too.
Oh, really? Well, we have something in common, huh?
Let me put it in the box.
We have
Oh,
a special box for you.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
Righto.
And would Claudette Brady, would you come up to the podium? This is the last day of Claudette Brady, our executive director's tenure with us, and we are going to miss her. And I just want to let you know that that title, Two Voices, One Harlem, was derived by Claudette. That's how creative this lady is. that she came up with this. She came up with this program, and it's been a marvelous program. And she has worked with us for almost 3 years, and she has really helped to catapult us and take us to the next level. And we feel that we have a friend with her, and that even though she will not be working with us, that she will always be there for us, and we for her. And so this small gesture of some lovely spring flowers to say, thank you, Claudette. Yes.
I'm sorry.
She's crying.
I'm a crier. Yeah. Yeah. I'm known for my crying.
Yes.
Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure working here. Preservation for me, the preservation of Black history, Black culture, has been part of my life and who I am. And we talked earlier about stories. My love for history, my love for the social and political life of Black people across the diaspora was formed as a child in Jamaica. I remember, and when we say we need to tell the children our stories or talk to our children, don't think they're too young. I remember my uncles, and if anybody here is Jamaican or from the diaspora, they know this, sitting on the back porch playing dominoes and drinking some white rum as well, and having fiery conversations about Muhammad Ali changing his name and the civil rights movement in America. My most poignant memory as a child is the death of Martin Luther King, because my little island stood still. My family told stories, talked about histories, and children were included. So have those conversations, tell those stories, because that is how we keep our history alive. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
First, I'd just like to say, last, I'd like to say thank you to Victoria and to Dr. Lewis for joining us today here for this program. We thank you very much for this. It's been very special. We also would like to thank the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture for making this space available and for working with us to present this program. And we thank you, our friends, our members, and future friends for coming out and supporting this kind of programming. You shall hear from us in the future about other kinds of programs like this, and we hope you will also be here to support us. Thank you, and you can go outside now for book signings and photos. Thank you so much.